Let's talk about one of the most important aspects of graphic design and forms of graphic design, and that is social media graphics. Social media graphics are what enable brands to advertise their stuff across all sorts of different social media platforms on a daily basis. I mean, if you truly think about it, how is anybody going to hear about these brands if they don't advertise themselves on different platforms and stuff like that? So today I figured I would make a simple how-to through tips and tricks to give you guys the best tips I can give to create good social media graphics that are not only very visually pleasing, but very effective when viewed by a viewer. If you guys are interested in joining a Discord community that is filled with graphic designers trying to learn and perfect their niche, definitely check the link down below in the description. It's really cool. We have job opportunities, design events, and endless opportunities to get criticism on your work, and many other things. Definitely come check it out and explore. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the tips of how to create effective social media graphics. So for starters, my name is Frostify, also known as Connor. I have been in the industry for about 5 years and have had nothing but social media design experience, as it's definitely the type of graphic design work that I gravitated towards the most. I've had the opportunity to work with loads of different brands and have different opportunities to kind of, play around with different branding situations. And as you guys know, I absolutely love making YouTube content, so today we are going to be merging the two. The first thing you should consider when creating social media graphics is how it makes the viewer feel. Now, I know you guys are probably like, what? I literally just made a Twitter header. How am I supposed to make it have emotion or have any sort of feeling? And you could do this by simply just applying certain graphic design elements in your piece. For example, what colors are you using in your graphic design? What imagery are you using in your graphic? And what fonts are you using in your graphic overall? There's an easy way to find a cheat code for all of these things by simply going into Google and typing in what do the colors mean in graphic design, because not only is it in graphic design, but it goes for the whole world as well. Let's go ahead and go back into the past and take a look at a fan header that I did for Courage JD. If you guys do not know who Courage is, he is a gamer on YouTube and he creates awesome gaming content. If you look closely at this graphic, you can see a lot of blues and bright blues as well as yellows. Now, in the graphic design sense, the color blue stands for security, trustworthiness, stability, loyalty, wisdom, confidence, trust, friendliness, preservation, courage, and science. So blue is a very friendly color and can honestly be very welcomed to the viewer when they first view it. Now, if you look at the yellows and the golds of this design, the color yellow invokes happiness, excitement, originality, enthusiasm, confidence, hope, and even creativity in certain aspects. And I just want to let you guys know that I am in fact looking this up and reading this off of some awesome websites that I will link down below in the description. This is definitely something you're going to want to keep in mind, because when a viewer first catches the eye of your graphic, you want to make sure that you invoke feelings, if that makes sense. Because the one way to make a brand memorable is to make a brand have emotion. It's why we really identify with the majority of our brands today. And one of the things you could also do for your social media design is play around with fonts. Are you using a rounded font? Are you using a straight font? Are you using a giant bold display font that kind of screams aggression? These are all things that you can play around with and really just kind of, tamper with in order to create a specific feeling in your graphic design piece. Coming in at the second tip that I can give you guys for creating awesome social media graphics, it is going to be to use a consistent imagery style. Now, you guys are probably like, what does that even necessarily entail? Are we talking background assets? Are we talking, headshots? And the simple answer is all of it. If you're going to be making a header, make sure that you're using the most HD assets you possibly can. Because the truth is, if you have a super HD asset in the background and a pixelated JPEG distorted, image in the foreground, your design is not going to be as effective. People are literally going to look at it and scroll right past it and be like, what is this? Sometimes it could definitely tamper around with unprofessionalism, but to be completely honest, a lot of people don't go to that extent. In my personal opinion, it's always best practice to use the most HD assets you have available to you, especially since social media graphics are meant to kind of, be distorted onto different platforms and be kind of, formatted to different platforms. You want to be sure that your design is definitely viewable and understandable on all of these different social media fronts. Coming in at tip number 3, it is going to be to learn and use consistent branding. One of the things that I have noticed a lot about social media design, at least in some parts of the industry, is that it doesn't correlate to the brand it's actually made for. Let me go ahead and sum this up in part for you guys. Way back in 2020, I made a header for a phenomenal Fortnite YouTuber that goes by the name of Kuna. Since then, Kuna has transferred and become mainly a Valorant YouTuber and a Valorant content creator. However, when I made this header at the time, there was no orange. And nowadays, if you go ahead and look at his Twitter, you can see that there is a lot of light blues, a lot of oranges, a lot of blues and yellows. Where are they visible here? The best rule of thumb to tell whether or not you can nail this is scribbling out key assets. Like, let's just all of a sudden cover the name Luminosity Kuna, as well as the sponsors. Can you tell that this is a header for Kuna? If the answer is no, then it absolutely failed the test. Now let's go ahead and jump into the present and view the Courage header again. If I scribbled out every single aspect of Courage's logo in this piece, as well as Courage himself, sponsors, 100 Thieves logos, stuff like that, would you be able to tell that it was still for Courage? And if so, what are the elements that actually lead you to that conclusion? If you guessed that you can still actually, tell that it's a header for Courage, congratulations, you can definitely still tell because of certain elements. Things like the 3 stars, the color palette, as well as the utilization of different assets, especially his slogan. That's just a practice that I personally do for my social media graphics, but to be completely real with you guys can do it whatever way you're comfortable with. But the moral of the story of this tip is to just truly try to correlate with the brand as much as possible and learn it. And if you want to learn tips on how to learn the brand, all you have to do is go to their website and study their assets. For example, in the case of Courage, if we go to his website, right off the bat, we see 3 stars, we see his phenomenal font, as well as the use of kind of these blocky rectangular shapes. We see his classic font with the 3 stars again, as well as the classic yellow down here. You can absolutely tell a lot about a person's brand by simply just reading their about section. And way to tie 2 tips together, because if you guys notice in this about section, it says Courage got his start as a high energy shoutcaster for competitive Call of Duty and Fortnite. But these days, you'll just as likely find him playing whatever the latest games are on YouTube and creating content for 100 Thieves. Notice how high energy is a keyword there. Notice how earlier we pointed out the yellow. What is one of the key words? Confidence and enthusiasm. This is kind of how you learn and work around brands. It could definitely help you guys to really study the brands that you're designing for, because in the long run, you really want to understand what you're creating and how it will affect their brand later down the line, especially if they decide to use it. You never know. Coming in at the next tip, it is going to be one of the most classic and probably one of the most cliche ones on this list, and that is just going to be use graphic design fundamentals successfully. Now, what do I mean by fundamentals? I mean things like hierarchy, contrast, rhythm. You really want to make sure that you are nailing all different forms of graphic design fundamentals, especially when it comes to social media design. Your goal is to catch the viewer's eye, to make sure that their eye drags across the graphic correctly, and of course have a classic call to action to get them to engage with the post or simply follow into a different link or a website that you put on the social media graphic. There would simply be no point of social media graphics if there wasn't a call to action to engage that connection. Think of YouTube thumbnails, for example. YouTube thumbnails are a form of social media graphic. As you're scrolling mindlessly through YouTube, do you want to click on the thumbnail that kind of just, looks plain like this one? Or would you rather click on a thumbnail that looks super bright and eye-catching like this one? These are all things that you got to consider, and honestly, when it comes down to it, I'm definitely clicking on the brighter one. And that definitely also applies to social media graphics. I'm not saying to blast out the saturation and make it extremely eye-catching, but make sure there is a reason to interact with the post and make sure that there is a reason to click. That will help the most when it comes to social media engagement and growth, and can definitely help your graphic design journey depending on what route you take. Next up on the list, it is going to be to create consistent displays for your social media graphics. Social media graphics are not meant for one platform. If they were meant for one platform, that is, completely fine. That just means that said company or graphic is meant to grow one specific social platform. However, a lot of people utilize social media graphics to post on all different platforms. This means that when you are starting your design process, keep in the back of your head how you are going to fit this into different resolutions and different design styles, because that header that you're making might eventually be turned into an Instagram post in a 4:5 kind of resolution, or that esports graphic you're making might be turned into an Instagram story. You might need to change it from 1920 to 1080 to 1080 to 1920. So essentially, you want to make sure that the designs you are making are very flexible and can fit in different dimensions. And how can you do this? With the art of simplicity. Simplicity is definitely a certain design direction that you can take, but it makes fitting things in different dimensions way easier. Because the truth is, the less there is, the easier it is to fit into tighter spaces. I'm not saying by all means to just completely minimalize your graphic design style. Of course, you guys all have your own unique graphic design styles, and it is super amazing, but make sure you're keeping this in mind when it comes to sizing down things and making stuff kind of, fit for different socials. And last but not least, make sure to have fun, and do not forget get to sometimes put your own spin on things. If you are recreating a brand graphic for a content creator or a business, simply do not hesitate to kind of add your own twist on things, because that's what graphic design is all about: getting a problem, solving the problem, and reaching a successful conclusion. But with that, that is definitely all the tips and tricks I have for this video. I do plan to make kind of like a second installment to this video, only because social media design is so intricate and can go so in depth. But I wanted to just kind of create a video for those who didn't know where to start. I personally find social media design to be some of the most fascinating forms of graphic design yet, because you can literally invoke feeling through creating art pieces. It's almost kind of like mind controlling. Duh. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions, make sure to hit me up on Twitter. That is FRXSTIFY. I am absolutely available to answer any questions, or you can leave them down below in the comments section. I will leave the link to the Discord server as well down below in the description if you want to check it out. But without further ado, this has been Frostify, and I will see you next Friday with a brand new video. Peace out.